In this video, I'm going to review how to find the mean, median, and mode of different data sets. All of the data sets are going to be represented by these dot plots. A dot plot has one dot to represent each individual in a sample. So for example, in the first dot plot, which is telling us about the height of male and female basketball players, we have 30 total dots to represent 30 total people that were surveyed. Each dot is placed along the line at the height of that person. So for example, if you look at the left, we have one dot placed between 64 and 66, which means it's at 65. So that one dot represents somebody who is 65 inches tall. So before we start calculating, let's talk about why these dot plots look the way they do. In the first dot plot, we're looking at the height of male and female basketball players. You might notice that this dot plot has two peaks. This is probably because males are on average taller than females. So the peak on the right with the higher numbers is representing more of the male basketball players, and the peak on the left is representing more of the female basketball players. The second dot plot is the height of male basketball players. So this time we're just looking at male basketball players, which would be why there's only one peak in the dot plot. The third one is the height of male middle school basketball players. It makes sense that there's more dots on the lower end or on the left side because middle schoolers are going to be much shorter, most likely, than other basketball players. And lastly, in the fourth dot plot, we're looking at the height of male NBA basketball players, which would explain why there's more dots on the right side or the higher end because these players are going to be much taller than the rest. Now let's go through and calculate the mean, median, and mode for each. Let's start with the first dot plot. To calculate the mean, we need to find the average of all of the numbers. So we need to add up the height of every single dot, add them all together, and then to find the average, we need to divide that total by the number of dots, which is 30. So I'm going to have to go through and add every single height of every dot. So I'm just going to do that in my calculator. So if I start with the dot all the way on the left, we already looked, that's at 65. So I'll type 65, and then I'm going to type a plus and start adding all of the other heights. So the next two dots are above 66. So I'm going to add 66 two times for both of those dots. Then there's three dots above 67. So I'm going to add 67 three times for those three dots. Now, you might realize there's a quicker way to do this. Instead of adding 67 three times, I could have added 67 and multiplied it by 3 to account for the 3 dots. So I'm going to do that from now on. At 68, there's 4 dots, so I'll add 68 times 4. And then at 69, there's 3 dots, so I'll add 69 times 3. At 70, there's 2 dots, so I'll add 70 times 2. At 71, there's 2 dots, so I'll add 71 times 2. At 72, there are 3 dots, so I'll add 72 times 3. At 73, there are 4 dots, so I'll add 73 times 4. At 74, there are 3 dots, so I'll add 74 times 3. At 75, there are 2 dots, so I'll add 75 times 2. And then at 76, there's 1 dot, so I'll add 76 one time. And that gives me the total 2,115. Obviously, that's not our average height because we have one more step. We have to divide by the total number of dots or people in the sample, which is 30 if you counted all the dots. So divide by 30, that gives us a mean of 70.5 inches because it told us the heights are in inches. That might have seemed like a lot of calculating, but the next two, median and mode, don't take as much calculating. For the median, we're looking for the middle value in this set. So an easy way to do that is to start crossing off the dots on the left and the right side and work our way into the middle to find the middle dot. So I'll start with the dot on the left, cross that out, and then the dot on the right. And then I keep working my way in on both sides, only cross out one on each side at a time. So I'm crossing one on the left, one on the right, and I keep going until I get to one dot in the middle. So as you can see, we end up with 2 dots in the middle. So that means whenever that happens, we need to find the average of those two values. So we have 1 dot above 70 and 1 dot above 71. So to find the average of those, we would add 70 and 71 and then divide that by 2. And if you do that in your calculator, 70 plus 71 divided by 2, you get 70.5. So you can also just think about that without calculating. If you're looking for the number that's exactly between 70 and 71, it must be 70.5. Now the mode is the value that appears most often in a set of numbers. So in a dot plot, we're looking for the peak. Now in this one, there's two peaks. There's a peak at 68, which has 4 dots, and at 73, which also has 4 dots. So unlike the mean and median, the mode can actually have two different values. So we've got 68 inches as one value, and we also have 73 inches as another mode value. That's the only one that can have multiple values. Now let's do dot plot number 2. So once again, I'm going to start by finding the mean. So to do that, I need to add all of the height values for every dot and then divide by my total. And my total this time is 28. So I'm going to start with the dot all the way on the left, which is at 65, plus the dot at 66, plus there are 2 dots at 67, so 67 times 2, plus there are 2 dots at 68, so 68 times 2, plus there are 3 dots at 69, so 69 times 3, 3 dots at 70, so add 70 times 3, 4 dots at 71, so add 71 times 4, 3 dots at 72, so 72 times 3, 3 dots at 73, so add 73 times 3, 2 dots at 74, so add 74 times 2, 2 dots at 75, so add 75 times 2, 1 dot at 76, and 1 dot at 77. Now we need to divide by our total, which is 28, and that gives me the mean value of 71 inches. Now to find the median, once again, we're going to cross out 1 dot on each side until we get to a middle dot. So only cross out 1 at a time to make sure you don't lose track. Now once again, we end up with 2 dots in the middle, but this time both of the dots are at 71. So if we were to try and find the average, that wouldn't make a difference because both dots are at 71. So the median must be 71 inches. Now the mode, remember, is our peak, or where we see the most dots, and that's at 71 as well. So you might notice that we got the same number for all 3 for this one, and you'll see later in another video why we got the same number for this dot plot. Now for dot plot number 3, once again, I'm going to start with finding my mean. So I'm going to start with the 2 dots on the left, which is 65 at 65, 65 times 2, plus 66 times 3, plus 67 times 2, plus 68. There's 1 at 71 and 1 at 75. And then the total number of dots here is 10, so I'll divide by 10. And that gives me a mean of 67.6 inches. Now the median, once again, I'm going to cross out 1 dot on each side until I get to the middle. And we're again with 2 dots. You might notice the reason we're getting 2 dots in the middle every time is because the total in these 3 dot plots has been an even number. So you're always going to end up with 2 in the middle, and then you have to average them. So we have one of the dots is at 66 and one is at 67. So you can do in your calculator 66 plus 67 divided by 2. Or you know that since we're exactly in between 66 and 67, that's going to be 66.5 inches as our median. Now our mode is our peak, or the value with the most dots, which is 66 inches. Now our last one, let's start with the mean. We're looking at just NBA basketball players. So I have 1 dot at 66, 1 at 67, 1 at 68, 1 at 71, 2 at 74, so 74 times 2, 3 at 75, so 75 times 3, and 2 at 76, so 76 times 2. That gives me 797, and I've got 11 dots total. So that gives me 72.4, or I'll round that to 72.5 as my mean. Now we can find the median by crossing out our dots again. And this time we don't have an odd number or an even number, we have an odd number. So we did end up with 1 dot as our median value, and that dot is at 74. So 74 inches is our median, and then our mode is the peak,